Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have Raven 1983 Witch, great to see you. Colin, great to have you on. Killer, thanks for moderating, great to see you. We also have CGM, great to see you too, moderating. We have also Enzo the God, great to have you on, Enzo. Cole, great to see you. Ronnie, Eddie, Alistair, great to have you on, Alistair. We also have Oraman, great to see you too. Who else have we got? Ava, great to see you. Roshin, great to see you. Hope you're well. We also have Gene T, great to see you, Gene T. Fearless Wolf, hope you're well. Hope you have your your mankini. It's a bit cold, I guess, for that. Ted, great to see you. We also have Daily Blaze, great to have you on, Daily. Stu, great to have you on once again. Hope you're well. Young Ralph is there, I see. Wolf Pet, great to see you too. John O'Sullivan, great to have you on again, John. Number 3, great to see you. Hope you're well. We also have Katrina, great to see you. Hope you're well. Who else have we got? Bumbling Boris Buffoon. I love the name. Bumbling Boris Buffoon. It's so apt. It's so true. The Lefty Boater is on. Great to see you. We also have Shirley, Jackie, Kevin. Great to see you all. We have Maxi Minimus. Great to see you. Tories don't get tasered. Richard Turner. Great to see you too. My Lazy Sunday. Great to have you on. So I want to say hello to everyone. Conservator is on too. I see. Reagan Elite as well, and Aki's Mad, great to see you as well. So I want to say hello to everyone. Wee Scott's Dog, great to see you too. Hope you're well tonight. And everyone, I can't say hello to everyone, otherwise be here all night, of course. It's up to 200 viewers. I try my best. So I hope everyone had a great week, and I hope you're ready for the weekend. I hope it will be a nice weekend. Of course, we're going to talk about a little bit about Brexit. Brexit is back in the news again, of course. It's been talked about and avoided by both the Labour Party and the Tories. And one of the first stories I want to talk about is beer banned from stadiums in Qatar. Qatar or Qatar? Which is the correct pronunciation? Because I normally pronounce it as Qatar. I'm gonna say Qatar unless somebody says it's called Qatar. Anyway, Qatar is hosting the World Cup, and they've decided no beer. You can have Budweiser, but it's Budweiser zero alcohol. Yeah, so, I think somebody joked that Budweiser is like regular beer that's passed through somebody already, or like Foster's, or maybe that was Foster's beer. I'm not sure. Anyway, we can jump into this story about beer being banned at stadiums, which is not going to go down well with fans, especially European fans who like their beer.
Stands that football fans will no longer be allowed to buy alcohol around World Cup stadiums. This very late decision comes ahead of the opening game in Qatar on Sunday. Qatar had originally ordered Budweiser stands to be less prominent, but now it appears alcohol will not be sold at all. We can now speak to our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, who's in Doha. Rob, crikey, this is going to be a pretty joyless occasion if the fans can't get a pint at the footy.
Yeah, fans will still be able to get drinks around Doha in hotel bars and in fan zones, but it will be at stadiums that fans won't be able to buy a drink. There had been a decision to only allow alcohol to be sold in the perimeter of the stadium, so not inside the stadium bowl itself, and for limited periods, 3 hours before kickoff and an hour after kickoff. But now this very late decision, 2 days before the opening game of the tournament, Qatar against Ecuador, top-level talks have led to the decision to ban alcohol completely from being sold to fans. Budweiser, the official FIFA World Cup sponsor, one of the significant sources of revenue, the sponsorship at FIFA, paying around £60+ million over a 4-year period for the sponsorship. Well, now Budweiser won't have their alcoholic products sold around stadiums. And what I'm being told from a source familiar with the discussions is that they thought actually at this point not allowing alcohol to be sold will create a more enjoyable environment. And the Qatari officials in particular have seen scenes of unrest, particularly even at Wembley at Euro 2020, with the way alcohol can lead to disorder, and that has created this late concern. Because it was at the start of the week we're actually hearing about how Budweiser had to move its beer stalls to less prominent positions at stadiums because they wanted to keep it away from where families might be buying things like merchandise, which just showed how sensitive this issue is. Because
okay, it's not the biggest story of the day, or it's not the most important story of the day, but I guess it's a sort of when in Rome, be as a Roman. In Qatar, you're not supposed to drink alcohol in public in particular. So you can do it in your hotel, or you can do it in some designated area. Look, I think at the end of the day, people are going to just adjust to this. Most people will adjust and say, look, okay, I can't drink in the stadium. I can't drink around the stadium. I'll just drink when I go back to the bar after the match or before the match. I think there is a risk that many people will drink alcohol before the match, and this could create some problems or you may have cases of people trying to smuggle it in on their body as they're going into the stadium, which could create some problems. But I think this is going to be, when in Rome, don't mind the slaves, you mean? Yeah. Yes, this is, look, once again, there are a lot of problems with hosting this event in Qatar. It should, human rights abuses. I think there was something like 12 or 13,000 people who died in accidents in the construction of these stadiums. Comparing that with the Olympics in 2012 in London, I think one person, literally just one person died. But it wasn't even as part of the construction work. They were crossing the road and they got hit by a car or a bus or something. How many trashed hotel rooms, Majik? Yeah, this could be a problem if you're forcing people just to drink alcohol in their hotel rooms. It could turn out messy. So maybe everything will go without a hitch. There will be a bit of moaning and complaining, but at the end it will be uneventful in respect to alcohol. Thanks, Majik. Thanks for that super chat. Anyway, let's move on. So it's not the biggest story of the day, but I think it was something important to talk about. Somewhat important to talk about. It says here, so a review of some of the British news today. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, a leading think tank, said in a briefing that the key takeaway from the autumn statement was that the UK had got a whole lot poorer after a series of economic own goals by the Conservatives. And because of the extraordinary scale of spending on debt interest due to high borrowing in recent years, combined with sluggish long-term growth and the pressures of an aging population. So yes, you have an aging population which is putting more pressure on social care. Councils are responsible for social care. Councils are just recently being given the permission to increase taxes, but putting up taxes on people during a cost of living crisis is not just going to be unpopular, but it's going to drive more and more people into poverty. Fearless World, thanks for that super chat. It was reported FIFA VIP hotels still not ready. Still not ready. Not much time to waste here. Not sure, when is the event actually beginning? But if the hotels are not ready, that's a big problem. You would imagine these were one of the first things to be constructed, but obviously not. I guess they just started with the stadiums and then hoped for the best. But a lot of these projects always run, over budget and over time, over schedule. Thanks for that, Fearless. But that's interesting if the VIP hotels are not ready. I guess the VIPs will probably have to stay outside the area maybe in other luxury hotels. That'd be probably the stopgap. Max, I need to get smashed if I am to endure international football. Not much about boycotting Qatar, but keep talking their human rights issues. Don't let it go under the radar and keep it in the spotlight. Yes, of course, there are a whole range of human rights abuses going on in Qatar, and the footballers have been. Some of the leading footballers, ex-footballers, I should say, like Gary Lineker, have been condemned for going to Qatar. So there are two ways of looking at it. You can either protest from home and boycott it, or you can go there and try to highlight it. I don't know if it's possible to highlight the issue when you're there, because I don't know the rights of protest. Right? Is it possible to protest? Is it possible to raise these issues on live TV? I don't know what restrictions there are on the media there as well. I imagine they're quite strict. But not this time. I will miss the whole tournament. I will likely miss the whole tournament. Cahill, thanks so much for that super chat. There'll still be pints in the VIP boxes in Qatar. Heard about the Supreme Court ruling next Wednesday on the allowance of an Indy Ref 2. Yes, so I think it's on the 23rd at about 9 a.m. Or 9:30 a.m. The UK Supreme Court will rule on whether the Scottish government can hold a second referendum on independence. So that's going to be a very interesting result, interesting case or ruling, I should say. So I think a lot of us will be glued to our TVs for that. Just on that, just for a moment, I wasn't going to really talk about that today, but yeah, that'll definitely be something to talk about next week. But if it could go either way. If the Supreme Court say yes, the Scottish government can do this, then it's full steam ahead, I would imagine, with campaigning for independence. If they say no, then I'm pretty sure you're going to hear a statement from Nicola Sturgeon saying, okay, the next election will be a de facto referendum on independence. So if you vote for independence parties, we will, when we form our next government, we will declare independence from there. And I'm actually more supportive of something like that, because the problem with referenda is that many people don't know what they're voting for. Yeah, they're more likely to know what they're voting for if they're voting for a political party. Now, the counter to that is people will say, yeah, but I'm voting SNP, but I don't want independence. I'm voting SNP in my area because I like what the politician does in my area, or I like most of their policies. But I think most people who vote SNP know that they're voting for independence. They're pro-independence. So, but yeah, definitely, Cahill, that'll be an interesting morning. Unfortunately, I won't be able to watch it live because I have something on, but I'll definitely check my phone whenever I can to see what's happening, and I'll definitely do a video on that. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Indie vote by Supreme Court on Wednesday, 9:45. Thanks for that, 9:45. So it'll be 10:45 where I am. Yeah, so I'll hopefully get a video out before 2 p.m. on that. So, but I'll keep you guys posted. It's going to be a very interesting result from ruling. I keep saying result. It would be a very interesting ruling to see what the Supreme Court has to say. But I think either way, it's not going to stop the wheels of independence rolling forward. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Today in Northern Ireland, a new IRA suspected of carrying out an IED LED attack on 2 PSNI officers this afternoon. PSNI now respond to 2 IED threats in Belfast. Oh my God, the new IRA. So this of course is a splinter group from the provisional IRA that had their ceasefire back in 1994. The new IRA decided we're not going to respect that, and a small group of paramilitaries who continue to fight the British presence in Northern Ireland, and they, like other splinter groups, are determined to cause problems. And Northern Ireland wants to move on from that. The people of the north of Ireland want to move on from this sort of situation, from the troubles, and people have more. They feel in their lives they have more important things to worry about, like cost of living. Can they put food on their tables? Can they get their kids school uniforms, because they're not sure if they can afford these things, to pay their bills, to heat their homes. The last thing people need is this new IRA trying to cause problems. I don't know what their goal is here, but once again, it has to be condemned. I don't know if there has been any injuries. Hopefully not. Thanks for that, Gareth. Max has something on. Hopefully, I don't know, Makini. Yes, no, it's an offline, sort of offline event that I have to attend to, unfortunately. So I won't be able to. Unfortunately, I really wanted to. It actually, another thing had been moved to that date, so I wasn't able to be free. But I'm definitely going to be checking my phone as much as I can. It goes on to say here, the IFS, the Institute for Fiscal Studies Director Paul Johnson, said the tax burden was unlikely to go back to pre-COVID levels for decades. And this is something that a number of people have been talking about, how there's a new era of high taxation and low and cuts to public services. And that threshold freezes might be the country. Meant that the country is in a new era of high taxation and high public spending. He added that the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt had done the minimum he needed to regain credibility following the disastrous mini-budget of his predecessor Kwasi Kwarteng. High public spending in the sense that because of inflation they need to increase public spending just to maintain the current levels. In the morning, broadcasters grilled Hunt about his decision not to abolish the non-dom tax loophole. He defended the move as encouraging the super rich to stay and continue to spend their money in the UK. The problem with all of this is that how can you go to people who are struggling at the moment and say you need to pay more tax? And they say, well, what about these people who have non-dom status? And the response from us, yeah, but if we tax these people, they'll leave. This old argument of we better not tax the mega rich because they'll leave. These people don't spend money in the local economy. They spend a very small amount of their income in the local economy. They don't prop up the local economy. A lot of them have money in offshore bank accounts. They have money in property, in assets. This is what they do with their riches. What they do is they buy assets, for example, property. And what's the consequence of that? It drives up house prices. So it means younger people, Generation Z, for example, who want to get on the property ladder, it's much more difficult because house prices are much higher. And it's more difficult for them to save because if they're renting, their rents are higher. So the amount of income they have left over to put in the bank and hopefully put it against a mortgage is getting smaller and smaller, and house prices are getting higher and higher because of people like those who are mega rich with non-dom status. And you have the heads of media who have non-dom status as well. I think it's the head of the owner of the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail who attack the likes of migrants coming into the country, saying that they're living in, they're staying in these hotels that cost a huge amount of money. This is a newspaper that's run by somebody who's taking advantage of a tax loophole. Anyway, Labour accused the Chancellor and the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, whose wife is a non-dom, of shielding the super rich while from paying their fair share of taxes. You need to tax the mega rich. You need to tax. They're not going to leave. Most of them have property or investments in the country. Most of them, when they say, yeah, if you tax us, we'll leave, it's a threat. It's an empty threat. Back in 1940, after I think it was 1947, the president of the US brought in a new high rate of tax. It was 90% on people, on the mega rich. And how many of them left the country? Pretty much zero. So you don't even need to go to that level. You don't need to have taxation of 90%. But you need to increase the tax. Like, there are people who are raking in money. We heard about the energy companies, and now you're going to have the banks as well. So the central bank, the Bank of England, has increased interest rates. This means that mortgage rates are going up, which means that commercial banks are making more money. And if they're making more money, they're making more profit. And why don't you tax that? Why don't you have a windfall tax on the bank's profits, like you're supposed to be doing on energy prices, on the energy companies, I should say. How much did the last budget cost us? So next 200 million quid. Yes. Goes on to say, Hunt also said it would be a difficult decision to delay the social care cap, but said he said that he had to do it for the country. The thing about social care, of course, it's councils that are, as far as I know, councils that are paying for social care. So councils need to raise money. The cost of social care is going up. And there's, of course, the impact of Brexit, which means that care homes have access to fewer staff, the fewer staff they need to run those care homes. And costs are rising, so it's getting more and more difficult. And what support is there for the community? Well, it's getting smaller and smaller, the support. I just sold my house, now renting in Bristol, expensive, but I may be able to buy here in due course. House prices are falling, and sadly, auction numbers are increasing. So this seems to be what's happening at the moment. Is house prices have started to drop. It's going to have to drop a significant amount in order for many younger people in particular to be able to get on the housing ladder, though. But then a lot of the problem is also the rising rents. So yeah, house prices are dropping. That means that many landlords are getting out of the business. They're selling up. But that's causing a lot of people to lose their homes, unfortunately, because there aren't real protections in place for renters. You can pretty much kick people out because you just say, I want to sell the property. And then where do people go? Well, they have to go into social housing. And then you already have councils that are on the brink of, on the edge of bankruptcy. And they have now a responsibility to find housing for people. Roisin, thanks so much for that super chat. Ministerian, great to see you on the stream. Thank you so much, Roisin. Very kind of you. The latest Ipsos political monitor taken from the 9th to the 16th of November shows the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, would be the preferred Chancellor to Hunt as high levels of economic pessimism persist and Labour remains a healthy poll lead over retains a healthy poll lead over the Conservatives. Yeah, so it's, the Tories are not very popular at the moment. This budget is not really popular either. And there's talk of how long will Rishi Sunak last. He's not done anything really to win back support for the Conservatives. He stopped the rot somewhat, but he needs to win back voters. And I think it's going to be more and more difficult. And the longer this goes on, because the next 2 years are going to see the biggest drop in household earnings ever Not in 10 years, not in 20 years, but ever. I think that the data goes back to the 1950s, something like that. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. The poorest people hit by 12% inflation, Max. Even if it could actually be more than that, because food inflation is at something like 16%. But on average, yeah, it's about 12%. And of course, the richer in society are not spending most of their money on food and fuel and energy. So they're not impacted by rising the massive rise in fuel and energy. Food and energy. That means they're not impacted so much by the rate of inflation, but the poorest in society are. That's why it's so important that there is more support. Now, there was some good news for people on universal credit and people with pensions. Universal credit is going up to about the level of inflation, just below the level of inflation. Not great. It just means, okay, you're not going to get any poorer or slightly less poorer. And pensions have the triple lock, meaning that they will go up with either earnings 2% or inflation, and all of them are going up with the state pension is going up with inflation. There is talk about a rent freeze for people in publicly owned buildings, council properties. There will be a rent freeze, so the rents won't be able to go up to a certain level, but people in private rental accommodation will not be protected, and that's a huge concern because a significant number of people are in private rental accommodation and they will not be protected. Thanks Alistair, for that. Diego, great to see you on the stream. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for all what you deliver daily. Thank you very much. Very kind of you. Try to be as honest as I can with the videos, and and try and be as entertaining as well. Sometimes it's necessary to be a bit entertaining, and if Jacob Rees-Mogg is on, then I say, yeah, I have to respond to Jacob Rees-Mogg. there's no avoiding the Moggy. The Resolution Foundation, another leading think tank, said Britain's workers would miss out on pay rises worth 15,000 over the next 5 years, as the Chancellor's tax-heavy budget pressured the nation's squeezable middle. Its research director said Hans Kotz did not appear achievable, and that unprotected departments would face George Osborne-style 2014-2015 levels of austerity. So there are departments that will not be protected, and they're going to face austerity. But the tax burden is increasing on those who are not on benefits, or who are on benefits but who are taking on some or using some benefits. But a lot of people are going to face massive tax hikes. And once again, why are they taxing the working class and middle class? Why aren't they taxing the mega rich? Of course, well, the mega rich donate to the Conservative Party. You're not going to tax those people. And also they'll claim that if you do tax this, we'll move away. Okay, but they're not going to move away. They've never moved away. Magic, thanks so much once again. Those pariah non-doms do not want to pay tax towards the country they are in. Should the country really want them? Yeah, what's the advantage of having these people? Yeah, they'll say, well, they contribute to society by paying, by buying products and services. But then everybody does. Like, that's not an argument not to tax them. If you're going to use that argument, then you'll have to say, well, you shouldn't tax anybody. You shouldn't tax the small business owner. You shouldn't tax the PAYE worker, because they contribute to society. They buy goods and services. Like this argument, well, we can't tax these non-dom individuals because they buy stuff. Yeah, but everybody freaking buys stuff. It's not an argument. It's really ridiculous. And I really wish somebody would push back on that. Hansler Hunt Max. Thanks very much for that. Super chat. The Tom League. Yeah, there was how many people, journalists included, have mispronounced Jeremy Hunt's surname, last name. I don't think I've actually done it myself, but I haven't used it that much, so I'm okay. But if I was in a studio, with the pressure mounting, I may slip up and use the wrong pronunciation of his name. Regularly, thanks so much for that super chat. Never forget, this could have been avoided. Yes. It was interesting that, and I did a video on it today about Jeremy Hunt, who was asked by the BBC about Brexit, about the single market. And of course, his response was, we're not going into the single market, or well, that's done and dusted, or something like that. But he did admit that it would have actually benefited the economy. So joining the single market would benefit the economy, but we can't do that because, well, people voted for control, taking back control. Look, and I've said this before, the way back into the single market is through the EU, and unfortunately at the moment that's not going to happen anytime soon. You need to convince the vast majority of people in the country that rejoining the EU would be a good idea, and you also have to have the two main parties on board, because there's no point having one party saying, yes, we want to rejoin the EU, and the other going, oh, look, they're trying to steal Brexit. They're trying to undo Brexit. You need the vast majority. It doesn't have to be everyone, but it has to be pretty much everyone. If you look at countries that want to join the EU at the moment and poll support for the EU, it's in the 70s and 80s. Most of these countries that want to join, there's already massive support for joining the EU. There's massive support for EU membership there. Britain needs to go through, unfortunately, a difficult period. People need to understand what Brexit is all about, and that's what you need. You can't have two parties, one pro-Brexit and the other opposite. One anti-Brexit, one pro-EU, the other anti-EU. You can't have that, because there has to be consensus. Yes, we need to join. It can't be an issue that divides people anymore. Or it divides them very little. Like, there's always going to be a fringe who will disagree with it, but they have to be marginalised. They can't be. It can't be a case of, like, the ERG, the tail wagging the dog here. The ERG dictating how the Conservatives operate. I've had a bit of a a road to Damascus conversion somewhat when it came to things about the single market. I've been speaking to people about this, and unfortunately I thought it was much easier. I thought it would have been a case of negotiating with the EU and eventually explaining, look, you need us, we need you, and then you can work out something. But it's not like that. And I think it's important for people to understand what the EU is about. The EU is like a bureaucracy, okay? It's not like a political entity. It's more like a bureaucracy. It's more like a county council or, a municipality or something like that. It's a local administration, okay? There are rules. You have to follow the rules. You can try and ask for some support in getting around some of the rules, but most of the rules are pretty rigid and you have to respect them. Anyway, we could talk about that for another time. Gareth, once again, thanks so much for that super chat. There's a reason why the UK kept the Cayman Islands, Max. Yes, they're quite useful. They're very useful. Squirrel away that money. Thanks for that, Gareth. Anyway, so it seems that for some departments, austerity 2.0 is definitely on the cards. But as I was saying, there's trouble brewing in the Conservative Party, and Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak could be out on their ear before we know it. which would be extremely embarrassing once again for the Conservatives. But it says here, Jeremy Hunt faces rebellion on Tory right over autumn statement. Jeremy Hunt is facing a rebellion on the right of the Conservative Party over his autumn statement. And I've seen a lot of criticism of this statement by people in the media who are Tory MPs. Statement after the former Cabinet Minister Esther McVey said she would not support the tax rises while projects such as HS2 went ahead. Hinting that she would vote against the fiscal measures, she said the autumn statement could be the final nail for the party's electoral chances. This is interesting now, because if a significant number of MPs within the Conservative Party vote against the government, how will the Labour Party vote? That would be interesting. Will the Labour Party vote against the government, or will they support the government? Will they say, look, we need to have this budget, we don't agree with it, but it's better than nothing? Will the Labour Party vote like that, or will the Labour Party vote against this budget, this autumn statement? Because these measures have to be pushed through Parliament. So it'll be interesting to see how the Labour Party react to this. I would imagine they would vote against it because they're against these measures. They don't go far enough. Some of them they completely disagree with. So I would imagine Keir Starmer would whip the party to vote against it. And if there's a significant number of Tories vote against it, well, this would bring down the government. Other Conservative backbenchers have questioned Hunt's budgetary plan, including McVey's fellow right-wingers John Redwood, a supporter of Liz Truss, and the former Cabinet Minister, and Richard Drax, who sounds like a Bond villain. Redwood said Hunt should have considered popular spending cuts, such as axing the $11 billion to the Bank of England to deal with the bond market turmoil, ending the hotel bill for illegal migrants. They were ending we're talking about buttons compared to, the entire black hole that exists that needs to be filled, and stopping the anti-driver expensive changes to main roads. These are just like small, insignificant pet projects for the far right within the Conservative Party. Drax argued that raising taxes on businesses and workers risks shifting the growth and productivity that he, Hunt, and I both want, and that would counter the recession that we're now in. This is very easy for these people, because these people can sit on the sidelines and say, you're doing it wrong, and the economy does not improve, and they say, see, we were right. These people are not in charge as well, so they don't have to take any responsibility if things do go bad. And something interesting was that the front page of the Daily Mail said, was it soaking the strivers, meaning that the government are punishing people who are working hard. That was on the front of the Daily Mail, not the Star or the Mirror, but the Daily Mail. Means that Rishi Sunak is in trouble, because if the Daily Mail is against you, then your days are numbered. You need to have the Daily Mail on board. Nick, thanks for that data. Latest YouGov poll was impressive. Right to leave 32%. Wrong to leave 56% +4. That's going to continue to climb. That wrong to leave is going to continue to climb. But the problem is there's still... I love the lamp. I don't have the lava lamp today. You will see it on Sunday though. The problem is that you need more and more people to believe it's a good idea to rejoin, and you need the parties on board. You can have the parties will follow the people. If a significant number of Tory party supporters believe it would be a good idea to rejoin the EU, then the party will start to talk about that as well. But you need both parties on the same page. You can't have Labour saying we want to rejoin and the Tories saying no, we want to stay out. Because you can't have this sort of division. You need to have both on board supporting it. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. We can invent a new UK together. a detailed blueprint, is that a crazy idea? I'm not sure what you mean by a new UK. Unless you're talking about Wangland, which my good friend Graham Hughes describes as England and Wales, Wangland, and that's it, because Scotland is likely to leave. But a new UK in the sense that a new democratic, open society, definitely, I'd be supportive of that. And I think people on the stream will be supportive of that as well. Hugo Drax, the villain in Moonraker. That's right. Your voice is so soothing, which is good because our corrupt government makes me feel angry. Flossie, thank you for that very kind comment. That's number Wang. Goes on to say, Jacob Rees-Mogg called the package of tax rises the easy option, suggesting that Hunt should have looked at the efficiency of government. The efficiency of government, what he means here is by reducing the size of government, laying people off. That's what Jacob Rees-Mogg wanted to do. Jacob Rees-Mogg is not about efficiency. It's about reducing the size of government. And it's not about saving the taxpayer money. It's about low regulation, low levels of control over businesses, ending. This is what he talks about when he says these supply side reforms in regards to the EU, in regards to Brexit. Yeah, we need to reduce regulations. We need to make it easier for businesses to lay people off. Businesses should be able to hire who they want, when they want, and fire people as they want. They shouldn't have to worry about pumping raw sewage or chemicals into rivers or lakes. They should be free to do that. And when it comes to product standards, they should be free to do whatever the hell they want there as well. And the more they do that, the further away they get from the European Union and the single market. And it becomes more and more difficult to align with the European Union. And I think that's part of the plan as well, to destroy the chances of Britain rejoining the EU, to do as much damage as possible. I think that's part of the ideological aspect of it. The other aspect is we're free market capitalists. Free carpet. Where am I going with that? Free market capitalists, where we just want, Wild West when it comes to the market. Just allow businesses to do whatever the hell they want. And you heard it there at the Conservative Party conference when they were saying, Jacob Rees-Mogg, I think it was, saying, yeah, we should allow companies with less than 500 employees to be exempt from business regulations. That's, of course, the IEA and those other right-wing think tanks talking. Fearless World, thanks so much for that super chat. Never operate heavy machinery when Max is speaking. Is it really that bad? Or that's soothing? Free the carpet, Max. I remember a guy in Dublin. His name was James Burns. He used to joke about his name. He used to say, "My name is Carpet Burn." Anyway, that's going down another dark alley there. Anyway, Redwood said Hunt, about the illegal immigrants. Okay. And then we have Michael Fabricant, the guy I describe as the Wish.com version of Boris Johnson. Another Conservative MP has previously said Tories would think twice about supporting tax rises when HS2 is going ahead. Another critic was Tom Montague, the founder of Conservative Home and the Centre for Social Justice, who praised the Daily Mail front page headline, "Soak the Strivers," saying, "I certainly won't be voting Conservative at the next election." Yes, you will. All they have to say is dinghies and you'll be voting for the Conservatives. I love how these Conservatives will say, I'm not going to vote for the Conservatives at the next election if they believe in tax rises. Yeah, the alternative is what? The Labour Party? You're going to vote for the Labour Party or the Lib Dems or the Greens? No, you're going to vote Tory. you're dyed-in-the-wool Tory. You're always going to vote Tory. This is, of course, an empty threat. Speaking earlier to broadcasters, Hunt denied that his economic strategy was unconservative, saying sound money was more important than low taxes. See, the Tories don't want... Oh, I missed Cahill's super chat. Let me go back up. Sometimes they come in together and I miss... I'm not sure what they're talking about on it, but... the YouTube refreshed something, so hope you're still on. Thanks for that, Cahill. Yes, it's... I wonder, do they have a not safe for work section on the Treasury Discord server? Sound money sounds like a Labour line. Of course, the Tories are, picking things up from the Labour Party. The windfall tax was a Labour idea, a modern Labour idea. It was used in the past, but when it was about the energy companies, the Tories, of course, said, we're not going to impose a windfall tax punishing these companies. And then the companies came out and said, yeah, well, we're okay with that. It's not going to stop us from investing. And then the Tories went, yeah, okay, but we'll include a loophole so you don't really have to pay it. I don't know if that was related to Liz Truss receiving £100,000 from, was it a former executive's wife? A former Shell executive, or BP, maybe it was BP. Anyway, it was one of these oil companies. A former executive's wife donated £100,000 or £150,000 to Liz Truss's campaign to become Prime Minister. That was money well spent, wasn't it? Although, at the end of the day, they got the loophole. So, maybe it was money well spent. That's what I've been saying for so long. You don't need to spend £100,000 or £150,000. You spend maybe £5,000, £10,000. Not everyone has that money lying around, of course. Most people don't. But if you can, organize a GoFundMe or beg your bank manager, lend me £5,000. I can guarantee you, I'll return the money in a week, in a month, because I'll get a contract. I'll just buy my local MP, my Tory MP, and I'll be given a lucrative contract worth millions. So it's money in the bank. Excuse the pun. Where is Boris Johnson? Has he given up on politics? Boris Johnson received £275,000 for speaking at some event in the United States. Now, what the hell people wanted to hear Boris Johnson say is beyond me. Boris Johnson is supposed to be an MP. He's supposed to be representing his constituents. Does he just think that, well, I'm going to get kicked out at the next election, so I might as well just skive off? Can you imagine anyone else doing, like in any other job where you're paid to do a job, you don't turn up half the time, and when people ask where are you, you're off doing something else. GC, thanks so much for that super chat. It reminds me of this story I heard when I was... I better not name any names because this could be it could be libelous. I could be up for libel. So I won't name any names. But when I was a kid growing up in Longford in Ireland, I remember a story of a police officer, a Garda or a police officer, who this is true. So he would obviously the police would have a patrol. They would have a checkpoint, for example, on the curve of on the side of the road or whatever, and they would stop cars along the road to check that they had tax and insurance paid, that their documentation was correct, and that the car they were driving was in proper order. And this one police officer, if he stopped you, you could avoid a fine if you said, "Oh, I need a room in my house painted," because he was a part-time painter, and he got a lot of work because what he'd do, it seems, is stop people on the road, and they knew that they could avoid a fine if they offered him some work. So he was a police officer. He was paid as a police officer, but he was working on the side. Obviously, cash in hand, so there was no taxes being declared. Completely illegal, and you could end up in prison for doing something like that. There's so many conflicts of interest involved here. And it reminded me of Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is just like that. He's off in America, having lots of fun. He was on holiday how many times this year? He's on holiday more often than these people who do holiday shows. And getting £275,000 to speak at some event. What the hell did people want to hear Boris Johnson say? 47th holiday this year. Thanks once again, GC. But it's insane. Johnson was Prime Minister and a KGB informer on the side. Or maybe it was PM on the side and it was full-time KGB informer. Maybe you got it a bit wrong, or got it the wrong way around. Peppa Pig. He was talking about Peppa Pig. Is he on the take now from whoever owns Peppa Pig? Judith Chalmers in a previous life. Make Boris American again. Yeah, that's where he was born. He was born in Manhattan, I think, Lower Manhattan. Maybe he can go back to Lower Manhattan and stay there. Legoland. Garda ruler B&B world. Fun Irish fact: Gardaí is police. Gardaí equals thieves. Not all of them, of course. Just the corrupt few. Oh my god! So we're about halfway through the stream, guys. But before we go to our funny video, of course, you have to remember. I told you about this before. We're having DEFR, the charity that provides people who are struggling at the moment to replace boilers and heating systems in their homes. They go in and they do that for a lot of people, and they need support. So we have our. Let me see if I can. I'll come to Garrett's super chat in just a moment. So I should be able to bring up my video. Hopefully it doesn't. Why isn't it working? Just a moment. We're having technical problems. Oh, there we go. Yay! So we have our hat, and I take a name out of the hat for those who don't remember. Where we go? Here we go. Our Soronvanti calendar 2023. So if you put your name in for the draw, remember, if you send buy me coffee, I will include you in the hat for the wonderful calendar. So let me see. I won't look inside. That would be very bad. And we have, who do we have today? We have Keith Parker. Congratulations, Keith Parker. I have a few calendars to send. So, Keith, congratulations. You have won the one and only calendar. So, I will get your details. I'll send you an email, get your details, and I will send that on to you. And the proceeds at the end of all of this will go to DEFR, who do wonderful work. So that's enough of me. Back to the show. Before we get to this, no, I just wanted to do the comedy moment, and then we'll get back into the serious stuff. Before we do that, just to read this super chat from Gareth McDonald once again. Thanks so much, Gareth. They got Bojo in because Trump was unavailable. Can you talk crap like Donald Trump? Yeah, okay, I'll talk crap like Donald Trump. Do I still get the same money as Donald Trump? Of course. Okay, that's great. So, thanks so much, Gareth. Well done, Keith. Yes, well done, Keith. You know, if you put your name in, you're going to win some. You're likely to win something. So before we go on, we have our one comedy video for now, and then we'll be back to the serious stuff in just a jiffy. Hope you enjoyed this.
Oh, I love budget day. Second one in 3 months. Fourth one this year. It's not really a budget day, is it? It's more of an awards ceremony. Who's going to get the prize? Who's going to get the money? Well, as always, we do. Because in the last budget, we got to pay less tax. And in this budget, you guys get to pay for all the mistakes we made in the mini budget. In a way, it's like I'm being given a brand new Rolls Royce after drunkenly crashing my car into your house. Or getting the kids to clear up after the adult party the night before. Or getting you to wipe my arse with a silken tissue after I've shat all over your carpet. And we've got 2 more years of this, so cheers. Bring on the next budget. Oh,
Well, that's exactly what the Tories are saying to people. No DLC, thanks so much for that super chat for Future Comedy Moment. Please find on YouTube Jerry Anderson -hen from BBC Radio Ulster phone in. I'll check that out. Thanks so much. So I won't be able to do it tonight, but maybe I'll keep it aside for next time, for next Tuesday. Matilda is great. Matilda, do check out Matilda. Anyway, let's move on. So a bit more on from Sky News on the autumn statement.
Well, day 2, what have we learnt about the autumn statement? Let's start with the big picture. This is real household disposable income. It's basically kind of how well off we're feeling over the course of the last few years. You can see kind of the level going up and up and up. Then you had the financial crisis. That's where that line ends. Now, had it continued in line with where it was going, that's where it would have been. But as we all know, that's not what happened. It flatlined. We had that kind of lost decade for growth. And I'm afraid the story now is basically another lost decade. Look at that line. That's the forecast. It's going to be flatlining. And the upshot of it is, have a look at the gap between the two of them. We're going to be 1/3 worse off than we would have been had that line carried on rising as it was before the financial crisis. That's quite depressing. It's worth offsetting that. The government is trying to do things to help out here. And when it comes to energy bills, look, the amount of support in the UK, that's the red bar there, and the higher these are, the more support there is, just money being kind of dispersed there, is greater in the UK, especially after this autumn statement intervention, than in any other country or major country in the EU. Worth saying those are cash numbers, so as a percent of GDP, it's slightly lower, but it's still really high. But offset against that is the fact that taxes are rising and more people are being dragged into higher rates of tax. And one way of looking at that is by looking at kind of who is facing higher levels of tax. So anything below the line is paying more tax, anything above the line is kind of getting a giveaway by your income level. So you're looking at earnings there. The further you are up there, the more you're earning. To give you an example here, someone at £62,000, they will take a £1,600 hit. Now, the line is flat all the way up into £124,000. So if you're on £124,000, that's also £1,600. But here's the thing, you probably noticed this already. Look at those boxes. For someone on £62,000, £1,600 is 2.6% of their earnings compared with 1.3% of the earnings of someone who is earning much more. You see the...
Yeah, and that's the problem. So if you're earning a significant amount of money, you're going to be hit, but the percentage of that hit is much smaller than somebody who's earning less than that. And of course, you go down the scale, the percentage is still going to be pretty high. It's going to be higher for people on a lower income. That's why you need to increase, you need to make it more fair. You know, apply 2.6% to people on over £100,000. That's a much bigger amount of money you're going to bring in. So once again, you're allowing people on the upper end of the scale to avoid the real hurt. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. My theory, Hancock is building his defense fund. Whoa. I really hope that's look, he's another person who should be out on his ear. He should not be making money on the side. And you know, the fact isn't he still an MP? Like, he lost the whip, but he's not. He's still an MP as far as I know. Shouldn't he be doing his job as an MP? Like, why wasn't there a by-election? Why didn't he lose his seat and there was a by-election? He's not doing his job. His office is saying, well, he's still working. He's still, you know, we're in constant contact with him. He's not. He's not doing his job. I don't think Matt Hancock probably did very much anyway. But his job is to his responsibility is to his constituents, and obviously that's not the case at the moment. He's on some friggin' island. But he's pocketing a lot of money out of this, £400,000 as far as I know. And then he's probably going to write a book, and then he'll appear on, Dancing with the Stars, and he'll appear on all these other shows as well. That's how it normally works. Sort of Sky, some of those countries pay buttons on fuel compared to the UK, so need less support. Yeah, I think this graph that they have is a bit skewed because the amount of the fuel that they're paying is much lower, so the UK is paying much higher rate than some countries in Europe. So yeah, the graph is not correct. It's not taking into account how much they're actually paying.
Point. It's the middle which is being really squeezed here. And another way of looking at that is at looking what share of adults are paying the higher rate of tax. It used to be quite a small proportion that were paying that 40p rate. Back in the early 90s, under 4%. But look at how that line has gone up. More and more people being dragged into that higher rate, so that now, at the end of the forecast horizon, you're talking about nearly 15%. So more people paying those higher levels of tax. It really was a tax-raising autumn statement, and that is the day 2 verdict so far.
Yeah, Matt Hancock is forming a protective ring around other contestants, Max. Matt Hancock's job is being Matt Hancock. The clue is in the name. That bloke looks like Hancock. He does actually. He does look a bit like Matt Hancock. I hope Matt Hancock's constituents make a lot of freedom of information requests for expenses he's claimed while away on TV shoots. This is the gateway to getting him recalled. Good point. Yeah, I really hope they're asking, what is he doing at the moment? How much is he claiming on expenses? Of course he's claiming some on expense. Something, probably what he's not getting from the TV show, he's probably claiming on expenses. And that's not for legitimate work. Because he's not working as an MP. It's a bit like that guy who was he fired yet? The one who was in the Cayman Islands, working as a lawyer in the Cayman Islands or in Barbados. And he was an MP, and he was voting remotely on bills while he was giving advice to one of these governments. Anyway, let's move on. It's a really weird week. I just wanted to cover this story, which was really weird. And then I'll move on to more serious stuff. I've kissed a Tory and I'm not ashamed, Keir Starmer reveals. He's holding his hands up. Keir Starmer has tried to reveal a little more about himself, confessing that he has broken the never kissed a Tory rule and that he is not ashamed. The Labour Party leader said that he was not tribal when it came to personal relationships and politics because he entered the political scene relatively late in life. Speaking to Times Radio, he suggested only people in the political bubble were focused on maintaining division. Asked about other Labour figures who wore never kissed a Tory badges, Starmer said, "I'm afraid I've broken that rule. I'm not tribal. I'm on very good terms with many Tory MPs. I'm not ashamed about it, and I've got good friends who are Tories, and they've been very, very good friends of mine for a very, very long time, and long may it last." This is not a good thing to say. You don't have to say. I don't know how to say this. I think it's important to be honest, but honesty also has a limit. I know people are saying, look, Starmer is a Tory. So there's no, why would he say I've kissed a Tory? You're not helping your situation here. You're not helping yourself. This is not helpful, Keir. No, it's not. If people see you standing up to the Tories, and you turning around and saying, well, they're all my friends anyway, or a lot of them are my friends anyway, then it comes across as an act. I understand the reality. I've seen the politicians, when PMQs is over, you see them march out of the chamber they shake each other's hands. They have they slap each other on the shoulder. They have a bit of a chin wag and a laugh together. Most of them do it because it's a bit of grandstanding and theatre. I think most of them say, look, I'm not angry with you as an individual on the other side. I don't hate, for example, if you're a Labour MP, you'll probably say, I don't hate Rishi Sunak. I hate what he stands for. So I can have a cup of tea with Rishi Sunak. I can have a laugh with him, but I don't agree with his policies. Because I work with him, I think this is the way they see it. It's like a workplace. You can have a chat, but the problem is that in a workplace, you have to work with these people. You don't have to be friendly with them, but you have to maintain a standard. And I think Parliament is a weird place where there's a lot of backstabbing that goes on, of course, but there's a lot of weird behavior that goes on as well. This idea that, yeah, these people are my friends, I'm friendly with them. You can say, look, I have a reasonable relationship with certain MPs, a friendly relationship, but that's as far as it goes. I wouldn't call them my friends. How can you say I'm friends with somebody who believes it's okay for children to go hungry? Like, I don't have friends who say these things. If a friend of mine came out and says, yeah, these free school meals, I believe the Tories are right, they should let them go hungry. Or there are people who are on universal credit who are just scamming the system. People who, they're lazy, they deserve a kick in the arse, they deserve to be thrown off it. There are these people coming across the sea in these boats, we should shoot the boats. I can't be friends with somebody who says that. Now, I'm not saying that all Tories believe that. But if you support policies like the free school meals, if you support a policy that says, no, we're not going to give free school meals to people, like, how can you be friends with somebody like that? Maybe I'm a purist, maybe I'm unreasonable, but I understand, look, there are people on the other side, they have a different opinion, but their opinion has an impact on society. Like, my neighbour, I don't agree with him, but the amount of damage to me my neighbour can do is extremely limited. My neighbour is not an MP. If my neighbour was an MP and I was an MP, that would be a different scenario. This is really weird. I don't know how to react to this. I don't even know how to comment on this, because it's. I'm not saying you shouldn't be friendly with people. You shouldn't have a reasonable relationship with them. But how can you be friends with somebody who thinks young people don't deserve a job, don't deserve support to get a job? People who are ill or disabled don't deserve extra benefits, an increase in benefits. How can you be friends with somebody who says that? And I know people in the chat will say, yes, but my dad or my mum or my uncle is like that. But you don't choose your family, okay? There are people in families that you completely disagree with, but you don't choose those people. You do choose your friends. Once again, maybe I'm beyond the pale here. Maybe I'm extreme. But please tell me in the chat if you agree with me or disagree with me. Maybe I'm too much within an echo chamber. I'm in a bubble where I don't interact with these people. We have a super chat from Tom Aleg. Thanks so much once again. We have MPs who do feck all to DUP. The DUP just kissed the Tories' arses, and it was on full display the other day with Sammy Wilson. They do it, like, they support the Tories even though they're not getting anything in return. I think it's this, and I said this before, the DUP are English cosplayers. Like, the Orange Men are British cosplayers. This is what they think Britain is, and they dress up like that, and they try to be like that, but they never will be. It's sad. It's actually quite pathetic to watch. We are British. The DUP, we are British, we're not Irish. You're not British. There's nothing. You would be dropped if Sammy Wilson was dropped in the middle of any English town or city, and he started to speak. The first thing people would say is, "You're from Ireland." Their reaction to him would not be that he's British. If he started marching around with a sash and a bowler hat, they'd say, apart from saying, "What the hell are you doing?" they would say, "You're not representing British culture." This is probably going to offend people, but I think that's the reaction they would get. But just all you have to do is say, I get a bit triggered by DUP. Just say DUP and I'm off on a rant. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Was it a bush tucker trial killer? Oh my god. That's where he puts his hands when kissing Theresa Coffey. Oh my god! How could anyone be friends with Theresa Coffey? It's like somebody. This week she was talking about how, we're going to deal with raw sewage being pumped into the sea, but not now because I have more important things on my plate. Max, why don't Labour? Thanks so much, Kevin. Why don't Labour just concede the next election and say we can't fix it? We can't fix this. Let the Tories. So when people finally wake up, that they can't. They can lay out what they want. Sorry, they can then lay out that they want the media transparency. I'm not sure I fully understand the last part, but to let the public realise what the Tories are all about. I don't think people can last that long. I think people need real change as soon as possible, and I think they need a government in place who's actually going to invest in public services, who's going to provide the poorest in society with the support they need. It's going to come at a huge cost. The Tories have trashed the economy, and the recent Tories have trashed the economy even more. So whatever Labour would take over would be a poison chalice. But maintaining Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt in place is just going to make things worse for people. Thanks for that super chat. Sorry I didn't fully understand the last part, but I think I got the main part. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Max, totally agree with you. Thanks for that. Unionists consider themselves Irish Unionists until after partition. Kissing during lockdown? I hope not. I hope when he says kissing Tories, it was not during lockdown. Thanks once again, Alistair. Thank you so much. Did Sammy's head make it to orbit yet? Sammy Wilson is always very angry, so just mention protocol or sausages, and that will have him explode. He's like one of those, those Russian tanks you see exploding when they get hit by a javelin or something. You see the top part just shooting up into the air. That's Sammy Wilson when you mentioned the protocol. Gareth, once again, thanks so much for that super chat. GB doesn't care about Northern Ireland. Brexit proves that, in my opinion. Yeah, it's true. And we've heard it on a number of occasions. When it came to Brexit, it came to the Union, Brexit won every time. And I think it was Julia Hartless-Brewer who said it on the air. She said, if Northern Ireland is the price to pay for Brexit, then I'm willing to pay that price. Of course, she doesn't live in Northern Ireland. So it wouldn't cost her anything, but for her, Brexit was more important than Northern Ireland. More important than the Union. And, it was surprising to hear, but not a complete and utter shock. When Sammy is calm, he's angry. That's true. DUP live rent-free in Max's head. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, okay? They do. They live rent-free. Sammy Wilson in particular lives rent-free in my head. The same way that Jeremy Corbyn lives rent-free in many Tories' heads. It's just, Sammy is a guilty pleasure of mine. I hope to meet him someday, and we can have a bit of a laugh and a joke over over a glass of whiskey. We won't be friends, but we can still have a laugh and a joke. Sammy is well schooled by the other redhead. Jim Allister. That's well said, because Jim Allister is bald, but he has a red face. He has a red head. And moving on, Kevin, why would you willingly drink from a poisoned chalice when you don't have to? Leave the Tories in power and then let the people revolt. I understand the logic there, Kevin, but I'm afraid that many people look, and I hope I'm wrong here, but I'm not saying it without some sort of support from Phil from a different bias. I think I put it to him on a number of occasions, would the British revolt? And he said, probably not. The British people like to grumble, but they're not like the French. They will not protest. And the Tories and the media and the right wing know this, and they take advantage of that. And there is one way of looking at it. If it needs to get much worse, and then the people will rise up. They will throw out the current government. But a whole load of pain has to come before that happens, unfortunately. And I don't want people going through pain, and I don't think many people do. What needs to happen is the government I have a feeling that Rishi Sunak's government is going to collapse at some stage, and then I think it'll be pretty much impossible for them to avoid a general election. But it is a poison chalice, as you've said. It's not a good thing to take over. You're going to take over massive debt, rising interest rates, rising costs, inflation, and of course, as whatever the Labour Party try to do, it will be criticised by the Tories and the right-wing media. It's probably the worst thing to be taken, the worst time to take over, but you need a change of government. We will learn young people when to tug our forelock. we learn as young people when to tug our forelocks in the UK. Mr. Ulster, man, that was a good one. Anyway, let's move on. That was just reaching out to the other side, it seems. Anyway, let's talk Brexit, of course. This is a story on Brexit. I once sold cheese to Europe. Brexit took my business to the brink of destruction. When I voted Remain as part of the EU, it was for practical rather than political reasons. As the founder of a cheesemaking business, my experience of exporting outside the EU has taught me that leaving the single market would bring my business increased costs and pointless problems with bureaucracy. The news of the referendum came as a shock, but I took solace in the subsequent promises of seamless transition. Perhaps if we had remained in the single market, the transition really would have been seamless. Yes, and this is important to remember, that there was a possibility for the UK to stay within the single market and the customs union, but it was a political choice to leave it. AN98, thanks so much for that super chat. What do you think of Trump standing for president of the United States again? We talk a little bit about this on the Sunday Roll, so do guys check that out on Sunday. I thought I thought he would run again anyway. Then there was the result a couple of weeks ago, or about a week ago, pretty bad results for the Republicans. It looks like they're going to they're going to win the House, but they're going to lose. They're not going to win the Senate. The Democrats will hold on to the Senate, so there will be a new speaker, Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives. The problem for the Republicans is whatever policies they try to push through. Whatever the president is going to have problems. He's going to try and push policies through the House of Representatives. It's going to get blocked probably by the Republicans. They have a very slim majority. So if there are some decent Republicans, they may vote with the Democrats, but that's probably unlikely. But even if if the Republicans are trying to get policies through, it's going to get stopped in the Senate. So you're not going to really have a functioning government. I think it's in a bit of paralysis. So Trump is toxic, and the Republicans know this, and it was demonstrated just over a week ago. And even if he does run, I think what's going to happen is you're going to end up with, and I haven't been following this very closely, but I have a feeling what's going to happen is you'll have DeSantis probably running, and maybe what's her name, Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney's daughter, former vice president. So she may run. She could, if she runs as an independent in the general election, in the presidential election, she could split the vote somewhat. Could damage Trump. It's probably likely that Trump will win the primary. But because it depends on whether the media back him. The media has somewhat turned on him. It depends on Fox News. If Fox News back DeSantis, Trump is in big trouble. If the likes of Fox News back Trump, then DeSantis is in trouble and Trump is going to win the primary. But I don't think he would win the general, because there's too much baggage with him now. And he's getting old as well. Like, he was old the last time. He's almost 80, and he'll be probably about 82, I think, when if he runs for president in 2024. So 81 or 82. I think the Republicans need to choose somebody else, and it's possible that they may go with DeSantis, but he's pretty toxic himself, so I don't see the country backing somebody like that. It generally works like this, it seems, in the United States. You have a president for two terms, and then they're replaced. So it's likely that if Biden runs again in 2024, he'll hold on to it, and then Trump will be 78. Maybe I'm thinking of Joe Biden then, sorry. Joe Biden is older than Donald Trump. Trump is 78 in 2024. Okay, no, my mistake. But if the House of Representatives is the Senate, sorry, I thought it was the House of Representatives and the Senate. I'm mistaken by. Congress is the whole lot. Too old to rule. Yeah, I should just stop talking about this now. I'm just embarrassing myself. But I think it'll be a case of who the media back. If the media back Trump, he's probably a shoo-in for the primary. If the media back DeSantis, then DeSantis will be the guy to go up against Joe Biden. But as I said, it tends to be Nancy Pelosi is 82, okay. It seems to be 2 terms as president, and then you're replaced. We saw it we go back to when, with the exception of George H.W. Bush, it was Clinton, then George W. Bush, then Obama, then Trump only won. He was the exception again, but generally it's 2 terms. So I have a feeling probably the Democrats would hold it for another term, and then they would lose it in the next one. So let's hope that whoever the Republicans put forward in 2028 is much more sane than who's on the possible ballot today. The appointment of Boris goes back to this. The appointment of Boris Johnson in 2019 as Prime Minister and the subsequent landslide election at the end of the year jettisoned any chance of a sensible democratic outcome for the Brexit deal. Brexit became the tax evasion for those set to lose most from EU transparency regulation. The aim of a hard Brexit was to remove all authority and leverage the EU might retain, including the UK's membership of the single market. The government shows no sign of acknowledging the difficulties this has caused for small business owners In the recent budget, there was barely a mention of Brexit at all. And that is, of course, the big problem here. Brexit is the elephant in the room. Brexit is causing damage to businesses. But Jeremy Hunt, Rishi Sunak, and unfortunately also the Labour Party are not talking about it. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. Brexit. I was in Plymouth soon after the referendum for a What Next meeting. 2 suits from London were there pushing for a hard Brexit. Paid actors. It's these people. I have a video dropping tomorrow. Involves a guy calling in to a radio show who was a member of Grassroots Out. Grassroots Out was presented as a grassroots movement, when in reality it was started by people like Farage, Kate Hoey, I think. Was it Daniel Hannan as well? I don't remember. There was a number of Peter Bone, or as I like to call him, Peter Bonehead. He was one of these that started this Grassroots Out. Yeah, so much for grassroots. And these were, this is an organization that was funded by Aaron Banks. So, you have this astroturfing, this fake grassroots, pretending to be an organization of the people for the people, when in reality they are backed by big money. We've seen it before and we'll see it again. And I wouldn't be surprised at what happened after the referendum. People pushing for a hard Brexit were paid to go there and say that. Anyway, let's move on. We're almost at the end of the stream for tonight. Whoa, running a bit late. Just I want to talk a little bit about the cost of living, of course. There's this clip here I wanted to show you.
In the city centre, they're getting ready for Christmas. But behind the pretty decorations, the fear of what is coming round the corner. People are bracing for a bleak winter. Hard to feel tempted by the festive treats when inflation for basics like bread and milk is at a 40-year high.
British people are tough, inventive and resourceful. We have risen to bigger challenges before.
For frontline council workers, on a training day organised by the GMB union, nothing the Chancellor offered convinced them life was about to get any easier.
I think we're all going to end up paying more tax because the tax allowances are not moving.
If you go to hospital, you're going to be waiting around for 4 hours in accident and emergency. That's not best value for the service, and yet we're paying ever higher taxes.
How will paying more tax, if that happens, impact your budgets? Because budgets are tight.
If I give you an example, last night my wife spent an hour trying to glue my daughter's school shoes back together because we can't afford to buy her a new pair. I mean, I'm 65, I've worked all my life, and we can't afford £20 for a pair of shoes. There's something wrong with society.
But even with the help they're offering today, you don't think, he's extending the energy support package, he's helping people on benefits with one-off payments?
So with the gas, electric and my mortgage, that's 75% of my wages gone, without anything else, without any, council tax, water rates, car insurance, petrol, food, any of that, 75% of my wages gone.
I can't remember the last time I went to a pub, because I can't pay, £5 for a pint. It's beyond my means. So the local pub's now closed. Not entirely due to me not going there, but that's closed.
And then what happens? Political X, great to see you on the stream tonight. And remember, guys, to check out the Sunday roast on Sunday. But if this guy, he's not going to the pub, what's going to happen? More and more people are going to avoid going to the pub. The pub will close. And the pub, of course, represents something in the community, but of course also it provides employment. And those people are going to be laid off, and they're going to be reliant on public services like universal credit, for example. Poverty is a political choice. This is, as we know, a UBI would eliminate a lot of this. And well, the government would say, yeah, but we can't afford that. It's a political choice not to afford these things. You know, we saw 9 billion thrown away during the pandemic that could have been clawed back. The government decided not to. Now, of course, there's a cost with getting this money back. But as we talked about on the Sunday roast that you'll hear, there aren't the resources available. So HMRC is basically saying, well, we don't have the money available to hold people to account to try and get money back from them. So we just allow people to avoid paying tax. Like, we're talking about businesses. We're not talking about individuals. And I said as well on the stream, on the Sunday roasters, if you're an ordinary worker, you can't avoid this. You can't avoid paying tax. You have to pay your taxes. It's taken directly from your income. But if you have a small business or a medium-sized business, or you're a large corporation, or you're a multimillionaire, there are loopholes that allow you to avoid paying tax. Or in some cases, you just don't pay it, and you wait for HMRC to come after you. And in many cases, they won't, because they don't have the resources to follow up on these things.
Every week, our numbers are going up and up and up. And it's huge, and it's everyone.
The scale of the problem the Chancellor's plans must fix here is writ large at the Ward End Food Bank. They're spending £2,000 a month buying food because donations have dropped so much, while they're also seeing more people who are in work who must rely on charity to feed their families.
We're getting student nurses, we're getting teachers' assistants, we're getting some teachers. We're getting all sorts of people. All I know is that the poor are getting poorer, and also the mid-range people are getting much poorer.
Something I've been following on this is that a lot of people who are doing irregular work, so people on 0-hour contracts, are relying on food banks as well, because they don't know if they're going to get paid. They don't know if they're going to work. Or whatever work they get is not sufficient to pay bills. So that's why they are relying on food banks. You know, there was this idea that, well, the people who are relying on food banks are people who are destitute, or people who are in a permanent state of poverty, but that's not the case.
For some of the people arriving today for the first time, it was clearly a difficult experience.
I've just spoken to a young woman, pregnant, mother of 2. She didn't want to go on camera. She's a care support worker helping deaf and blind people, but she's had to come to the food bank for the very first time because she says while everything is going up, her wages have stayed the same and she can simply no longer afford to feed her family.
Birmingham's Labour-run City Council already declared a cost of living emergency back in September, pledging an extra £5 million to help people struggling to afford the basics. Where does today's statement leave the council?
Well, I believe this is a return to austerity for local government. It's extremely disappointing.
The government have been quite clear. They say this is not austerity. They have made many provisions for people on lower incomes. They've protected pensioners. They say it's a very compassionate budget.
All of which is good stuff, but people rely heavily on council services. We'll be faced with the choice between cuts to services or putting up the council tax by the extra 2%. But I have to say that 2% for Birmingham, that raises around 8 million. Next year, our increase in energy bill alone is 18 million.
My God. So, like, increasing council tax, this is what the government is saying. Well, the councils will be able to just raise council tax. But as you heard here from this councillor, yeah, we can raise the council tax, which is going to impact ordinary people, but it's not going to raise the money necessary just to even heat the buildings. Let me read some more of your comments. Did you see those workers from Nepal who came and are 2,000 out of pocket and can't get home? No, I didn't see that, Chris Silver. I'll have to check that out as well. But it's the slave economy. The people being brought in with the idea of being with the dream of having a good job and earning money and sending some of it at home, and then these employers hold on to the money and hold them ransom. Say, well, you're not going. If you try to leave or if you try to protest, right, we won't give you your money and we won't allow you to send the money back to your families. It's a disgrace. Compassionate Tories, the bullshit the bastards, should look up the word in the sodding dictionary. He's balanced precariously on that banister. Some in here take perverse, as Nick says, some in here take perverse pleasure in seeing millions of people, especially English, suffer as a result of Brexit, especially those who didn't vote for it. Need to have a word with themselves. Look, I don't think anyone is taking pleasure, and I hope nobody is taking pleasure of anyone suffering as a consequence of Brexit, because even people who voted for Brexit, and I've said this before, and I said this on the channel, I remember there was a video, one of the very first videos I did on this was a guy who ran a business about for glass eels, and he invited people from UKIP to his business, and you could see how they edited the video to make him say, things that maybe a little bit were out of context. But anyway, he invited these people, he allowed these people to come into his business, and he was talking about how it'd be great to leave the EU and whatever. And as far as I know, his business closed down as a result of Brexit. He thought he'd be able to sell glass eels to different parts of Eastern Europe outside the EU, and that came to nothing. And he had barriers to trade. He wasn't able to export his glass eels into European countries which was his biggest market. And I said at the time, I wasn't laughing about it. I was concerned for his workers. Yeah, he will close down. He'll sell his business. He'll probably still have a roof over his head. I didn't find any pleasure in that, but I was saying how his workers are going to suffer more because they're going to end up having to look for a job. He can sell up and probably get by, but his workers can't. And, he was convinced by UKIPers to vote for Brexit, and he was used as a propaganda tool by them as well. And I would assume that he believes Brexit was a bad idea. But even if he still thinks Brexit is a good idea, he suffered the consequences, and his workers too. Imagine voting for Brexit thinking that there would be no more asylum seekers and everyone would get richer, only to get this dose of reality. I have no sympathy for racists and bigots. There are people who voted for Brexit hoping that it would keep foreigners out, or they went down to their local Tesco and complained that there were too many foreigners there, and I'm going to vote for Brexit to get these people out. I have no sympathy for these people if they're suffering the economic consequences of Brexit now, because that's what they wanted. And these people didn't vote for taking back control of money, or something about unelected bureaucrats. Their whole ideology was based on xenophobia, a hatred of the other, and I have no sympathy if those people are suffering the economic consequences, because they voted for the wrong reason, I could say.
Somewhere to shelter from the cold while saving on your energy bills. This warm bank, run by the Northfield Community Partnership, opened 2 weeks ago. It's been a godsend for 64-year-old Frank, who's out of work. His benefits will rise with inflation, but he may also be one of hundreds of thousands of claimants who were told today they have to do more to find a job.
What do you think?
And this is we'll get to him in a moment, but this is the other side. Yeah, we're going to give you some money. We're going to give you a bit more money, but you're going to have to look for work now. You're going to have to spend more time with your employment coach. You're going to have to try and find work. Like, I've said this before. There are people. The vast majority of people want to work. There's a very, very small minority who don't want to work. But by punishing the ones who do want to work, because you believe they're in the minority who don't want to work, is inhumane, and it's counterproductive. Because if there are people who don't want to work, which are once again a small minority, You're not going to convince them to work by getting them to do more training and more time with a job coach or whatever. It's just an attempt to punish people. It's not about, why doesn't the DWP, the Department of Work and Pensions, why don't they list jobs and say, here is a number of jobs available. What would you like to do? If you want to help, if you need help with your CV, we're here to help. If you want to do some practice with interviews, we're here to help. That's what it should be. Not about punishing people or continually pressuring them.
Think the additional pressure will mean for you? Is that hard to cope with?
Mentally, certainly. Maybe even physically. I don't know.
Do you find it hard?
Yes. I've been out to work some time now, and the working world has changed, the marketplace. It'd be an alien environment to me.
And so are you optimistic at all about the future?
Optimism. It's not a word I use a lot these days. I'm not familiar with the term. I hate to sound negative, but optimism, it probably doesn't come into my vocabulary.
That lack of optimism was reflected often here. The Chancellor promises a recovery will come. The question is, how long will people have to wait?
I want to say thanks to Richard for that super chat. Max, did you see the Brexit backlash on Question Time last night? The audience showed a very clear view of it. Well worth a watch. About midway through. Yeah, I saw some clips on Twitter about it. I didn't see the whole show, but I did see some clips on Twitter. And I remember there were at least two people. I saw there was one lady who was challenging a Tory MP about this, and the Tory MP's response was, well, that was 6 years ago, or Brexit is over. Another man who talked about the problems facing his business, I think it was, about importing and exporting, and the response from both the Labour MP and the Tory MP were, sorry to say, pretty pathetic. Labour don't want to talk about this, and the Conservatives want to deny its reality, the reality on the ground as well. Let me see, Max. What do you say? Sorry. What you just said is what they do in Ireland when you're unemployed. And that's what it should be. That's what it should be. Do you need help to find a job? Because many people want to find a job. They need maybe, practice with interviews. They don't know how to do an interview. They don't know how to write a CV. It's very different offering help and forcing people to do something, pressuring them to do it, and sanctioning people, punishing them if they miss an appointment. Because at the end of the day, it should be, well, if you miss your appointment, if you miss your interview, well, you're the one who's going to suffer. So if you need help to organize, if you need help to buy clothes, for example, to buy a decent suit, to buy a new pair of shoes or something for an interview, that's what the government should be there for. For people because the vast majority of people don't want to be on benefits if they have a possibility of doing something different. And we need to encourage more businesses also to provide the opportunity for more people to work from home. There are more and more people who, maybe with disabilities or whatever, who can still contribute, of course, but they're not able to travel, they're not able to move into the office. And there's, with technology, we can provide more people with the ability to become independent by working from home. And the government could help businesses, maybe give incentives for businesses to hire more people who are disabled, people who are, who are not able to travel, give incentives for that as well. And businesses would snap their hand off if they could do that. Thanks very much, Richard. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I just wanted there was just one other story before we finish. And I went a little bit over time tonight. Apologies for that. when I start blabbing, I never stop. Just this one story here from Ireland. It says Twitter has temporarily closed its office in Dublin and in locations around the world as more staff chose to leave, sparking new concerns about the site's ability to stay online. So there's a real risk that Twitter could collapse because it doesn't have the staff necessary to continue its operations. Some guy thought it would be a good idea to treat the staff like shit, to lay a load of staff off, including technical staff who are necessary to maintain the site. It still seems to be running. There were some outages, but it seems to be still operating for now. And if it does collapse, I think it would be a huge loss. Twitter was operating pretty well until Elon Musk took over. He'd done a sort of Liz Truss. He applied a Liz Truss to Twitter. Liz Truss is now a verb, I think. To Liz Truss. If your car breaks down, you take it to the garage and they open the bonnet and they go, no, I'm sorry, it's Liz Truss. Or it's quasi-quartanged. I'm not sure which it is. I hope it does collapse. I'm sorry to hear that, Archangel. I use it as I use it as a tool to keep informed. The alternative is Facebook, or the new tool that doesn't seem to be working very well, Mastodon. Mastodon is an alternative, but it's not very user friendly, and you need to create profiles on every server, and it's not the same as Twitter. Trust. So guys, we're almost at the end, so of course we have our one for the road. I want to say thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks so much for the super chats. Greatly appreciated, as always. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job, and thanks to everyone who came on and smashed the like button. If you want to support the channel further, you can become a Patreon, and you have access to Discord. And after the stream tonight, I'm on Discord with some people. Do consider that. And if you can't, don't worry. I know it's a difficult time for everyone. If you can support the channel financially, do support me by sharing videos on social media. That's a great way. Like and subscribe. That's a great way to support the channel as well. So before we go, of course, we have our one for the road. Thanks once again, and I'm sure you'll enjoy this.
Chancellor Jeremy Hunt prepares to unleash the autumn statement onto the UK economy, a bit like a ravenous dog being unleashed onto a box of kittens. I'm speaking to an expert on economics. So can you explain to my viewers exactly why the country's economy is in such a mess? Well, an economy is a very complicated system. There are, of course, a number of factors involved. We only have a couple of minutes, so I'd love it if you could keep it down to, say, 3? Okay, well, there are global factors such as COVID in Ukraine, which are definitely fueling inflation and instability. That's one. Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng's disastrous mini-budget back in September cost a huge amount, up to £30 billion by some estimates. That's 2. And of course, underlying both of those two is the economic damage caused by Brexit. So just 2 main causes. No, 3. But Brexit doesn't count. Why not? Because it was a democratic vote. I'm not denying that it was a democratic vote, I'm just saying that it has caused damage to the economy. Damage that was democratically voted for. Sure, if you like. So are you saying that everyone who voted leave was an idiot? Not at all, I'm simply pointing out that there were some consequences to leaving the EU. And are you a fan of Putin? What? No. Why? Because you don't seem to like democracy very much. Are you okay? What about all of the economic opportunities we've gained as a result of Brexit? Such as? Well, Brexiters talk about reducing regulations, freeing up markets. They do talk about that rather a lot, don't they? It's almost like they don't understand that many regulations are actually there to help markets work better. What about all of the new trade deals we can strike? Well, there's currently no prospect of a US deal. A former government minister's just come out and said that the Australia deal is bad. And besides, none of these deals are anywhere near big enough to make up for leaving the single market. That's not what Brexiters would say. So why aren't I discussing this with a Brexiter? Because half of them won't come on this show anymore. Why not? They think we're biased against them. So instead, you make their arguments for them. Somebody has to. Why? Balance? You said half of Brexiters. What about the other half? Well, that's just people like Jacob Rees-Mogg. Fair enough. Next up, as Donald Trump announces a 3rd run for the presidency, we ask, why is a man who claims to hate losers setting himself up for yet another loss? Or is that question kink-shaming?
Wonderful. Oh, Matt is wonderful. So have a great weekend, guys. Remember to check out the Sunday Roast on Sunday morning. Very interesting guest and wonderful show, wonderful discussion. So do check that out. And I'll see you, if I don't see you then, I'll see you on Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. Thanks again, once again. Thanks so much once again for the super chats and the support. And have a great weekend. Stay safe. And I'll see you soon. Good night.